Hey everybody, I try not to let the pre-stream run longer than just a minute or two. Anyways, so this video is not going to be me attacking Sargon. That's not going to be the purpose of this. I think the whole Sargon thing is really interesting. I kind of did a video where I just kind of mocked him for his arrogance and his pompousness. But I do think it's an interesting subject. Should those of us who do activism online, or for lack of a better word, influencers, should we move beyond this? Should we try to get involved in like formal politics? Should we join a political party? That kind of thing. And I think it's an interesting question, and I think it's something that bears mentioning. It's something I've thought about a lot myself. Do I go and join the Conservative Party? Do I try to like start my own party? Do I join a fringe party? There's all these kind of these things to think about, and there's also the issue of maybe if you join a political party, you'll make things worse for that party. Like as we're seeing with Sargon, he's immediately having a lot of criticism leveled his way. I thought I had disabled that one. Run during the stream, and then afterwards I just go through and delete them. But Sargon of Flapplebees. Anyways, where was I? But yeah, it's all these things are coming out attacking Sargon. There's that whole comment about white N-words. There's like the thing he said about depends upon the child. Like just a lot of stuff has come out, and like obviously I don't give a crap about those kind of things. He could like the stuff Sargon says is very tame. The guy is very obviously not a like a far right guy. He calls himself center left, bizarrely enough, which I guess is kind of close enough to truth. But you guys kind of get where I'm going with this. I think when Jared Taylor and David Duke, etc., came out and endorsed Donald Trump, I don't think that helped him. I think that hurt him. So like, what's kind of the way to go about it? Should you just endorse them? Should you just talk about ideas but not mention the person in particular? I mean, there's a lot of different ways to go about it, and these aren't easy questions. These are very kind of difficult things, but I think they're interesting to talk about and to look into and to kind of contemplate. But anyways, let's start this video. So this is with Mauritian Struggle. If someone could maybe in the chat put down how old Mauritian Struggle is, because I think he's in his 20s. I keep seeing people saying he's a lot younger than Sargon. I'm just kind of curious. He seems like a very bright guy. Has a good future ahead of himself, I would imagine. Sorry.
Really should have more foreplay than that, to be honest, but at least that long. Alright, let's go ahead and start it. You guys got it pulled up? Yep. Let's start it. Right.
So I mean, I think you're interested in getting more involved with the party politics, right? Since you're now a member, or at least are in the process of being fitted.
Be interested in party politics.
Well, then why would you join a political party? I mean, this is kind of the interesting, and this is kind of going back to what I'm saying. Is there a point in joining a political party? Is there a point in like joining it as a supporter but not getting involved at kind of the ground level? Because for those of you who don't really know how politics works, like when you're a volunteer, there's a whole bunch of stuff involved with it. Canvassing is the main thing, and Mauritian Struggle will talk about that. Canvassing is like, if you guys haven't done it, I've done it for a couple mayoral elections. You go out, you knock on people's doors, you ask, are you going to vote for this person? You give them literature, you kind of try to convince them to. There's voter ID. You have to like try to identify who the people are who are going to vote for your candidate. And then the day of, you basically harass them until they go out and vote. Sometimes what people will do is there'll be someone who goes and drives, like if there's turn my volume up or turn the the thing's volume up, because my volume's at like max. I can't really turn it up anymore. I guess I can move a bit closer to the mic. Is that better? Anyways, I'm sure chat will catch up in a minute. But oh, the vid. Okay, this is a great stream so far. I'm not playing the stream at the moment, so it's not playing at the moment. So that's why there's no volume. But yeah, like you go out, you canvass, you drive people to the polls, you call people, you try to raise money, you run events. There's all this kind of stuff involved with it, and Sargon's saying, I don't want to get involved with that. I mean, I guess you can say, like, if he is he's a big name. I mean, we can make fun of him. And I want to say again, I don't hate Sargon. I just make fun of him a bit. Because in part just because it's frustrating, because I think he could be a very effective person if he just get his head out of his ass. But yeah, like I get that he doesn't maybe want to go out and knock on doors, but he can do fundraising. You can do that instead of a fundraising. Like he can go have like a live stream to get people to donate money to UKIP. He can raise money for UKIP. He can do online activism. He can get his viewers to, I don't know, go flood website polls or do email campaigns or something. So like there's a lot of stuff that you can do with his platform, but he's saying that he's just not interested in it.
Then why did you join the party?
So I have something to support.
You don't have to join a party to support it. You can just like vote and go up the sidelines, but you specifically
Do you think I
decided
should tell thousands of people not to join UKIP?
Well, that's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is that if you want to be involved in the internals of the party politics, you become a member. If you want to vote for them, you go to the ballot box and you vote.
Yeah, but I want to declare my colours. I'm not interested in getting involved in internal party politics.
Well, you could have just said, well, I support UKIP and just not joined then. I mean, it sends a different message.
Yeah, I know, but this sends a weightier message.
Yeah, the thing is that, like, does it though? I mean, you've already got I don't think it does, because I think if you're declaring as a member, you're going to have, like, internal access. You're going to be given options to canvass and such for us.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah. I think that when you consciously opt in for something like that, I think you're declaring a little bit of an interest in that.
Okay, well, I guess I'll have a different opinion on that one.
Fair enough. So
I'm not really interested in the internal politics, but I am interested in being able to say, no, I'm a member of UKIP, and
so he just wants it like as a membership card. And I mean, once again, what benefit does this have for UKIP to have this guy become part of it? If he's not going to raise money, he's not going to do canvassing, he's not going to do anything substantial to help with the party, then what's the point? And I'm not trying to say this, like, I'm trying to be neutral about this. I'm not trying to, like, just slam Sargon, because this is something I've thought about. Like, should I go out and get more involved with the Conservative Party? Although the Conservative Party clearly doesn't want me. And there's always the whole go take over your local center-right party, but it's not that easy. They'll defame you, they'll kick you out, etc. And there's a chance that you'll ruin their chance, that it'll hurt them in the next election. So do you want to take a chance in trying to influence them? Is it good to get that, like, to try and get people interested in it? Or yeah, you know what I mean, like to try to influence it versus potentially hurting the party in an election.
Therefore, as in when I'm arguing with an SJW or a lefty or a socialist or something like that, I mean, they're all members of Labour. Why the fuck wouldn't we become members of a different party?
Well, I mean, why didn't you just do that before with, like, another party? It's interesting you're doing it now.
So, like, that is his argument. It's going to be, I'm a member of UKIP. okay, I'm a communist. I'm gonna make my arguments for social justice. Yeah, well, I'm a member of UKIP and I've read Locke. I'm a member of UKIP. I have received pronunciation accent and I've read Locke. It's the triple threat.
Now, especially considering at the moment we've got like a massive ideological diversity and we're only really united by pushing Brexit through. Like I say, we've got David Curtin, who's more of the Christian social conservative type, like myself. You've got other members who are kind of very libertarian, almost bordering on anarcho-capitalist. You've even got some social democrats around, and you have Nigel from the more libertarian end. I mean, obviously he's now left. He had a very strong influence on people. But the thing is that if you're going to be joining the party for a specific political message, and we're specifically kind of targeting, like, for single issues, and we're trying to unite everybody of varying economic and social perspectives under one banner for a couple of things, I think it's kind of not a very powerful or like advocatable position to have in a debate, because if you've got just a couple of surface issues that unite you, you don't really have a worldview that you can really get people with, I don't think. And I don't think that associating yourself with a group like that, you see my concern here. I think I'm making myself clear, right? I think
not really. I think what you're doing is trying to gatekeep for your own ideological interests rather than the actual.
I don't. Well, I guess he is trying to gatekeep, but he's trying to gatekeep in the sense that he doesn't want Sargon to join his party and like have the Kekistan flag and just have all of this this cringe and stuff. I think he just doesn't want that. He doesn't want the drama, etc. And he doesn't think Sargon is serious about that. And that's kind of the whole issue here. Is like I said, if he had been serious, he had said, "Look, guys, I think it's time for me to take a more direct role. I'm going to join the UKIP. I'm going to advocate for it, etc. I'm going to try to bring it to power and expand it." That would have been one thing, but it doesn't make any sense. None of this makes any sense.
Points of policy that really matter.
Gatekeeper.
Well, if I did that, then why wouldn't I be discouraging other members of the party from joining?
Well, it sounds like you are trying to discourage people from joining.
Well, yes, if they're going to cause problems, but I'm not doing it ideologically.
Oh, okay, what problems am I going to cause?
Well, I mean, I've been to your meetups, I've talked to you before, and I've seen the sorts of people that are there, and I don't think they're particularly serious.
I think they're very serious.
Oh, very serious.
Well, I have to disagree, having seen them myself. I think this is another point we're going to have to agree to disagree on. I think
You think that they're not interested in changing things?
I don't doubt that they're not. I don't doubt that they're interested in changing things. I just think that, say, Tommy Robinson's lot are a lot more invested in that, and that's exactly what we need. We need committed canvassers. We need committed speakers. And I think if we're going to have a kind of, I get the impression that a lot of the people who showed up to the Oozaloo meetup, because I was there, were kind of half-arsing it, and that's not what we want. We want people who will obviously promote our party as much as they can. And that would involve being good at canvassing, or at least willing to put down the time. I'm not saying that these people are irreparable. I mean, if they're more than willing to shift their ass and learn it, like fair enough, right? But I'm just kind of a little bit concerned, having met those sorts of people. You see my thought?
Is your concern because of optics, because of how these people behave themselves?
Yes, and yes.
Okay. So let's talk this through.
I mean, I think this is a very fair point. Like, as Mauritian struggles, like, if you want to show up and help out, that's great. But if you're going to come in with the Kekistan flag and just, like, IRL shit post and talk about how you're a big boy, it's not helpful. It's not an asset to the movement. It's just a harm.
So, you're taking Oozaloo's meetup in London, which was just a meetup to have a laugh and a beer. That's not serious political activism.
I'm not denying it is, but it isn't.
I agree with you. It's not.
But it attracts a certain crowd of people, and you can sense what these sorts of people are through interacting with them. Like you can. Like, that's getting to know some people, and I talked to a lot of people there, and I got a lot of impressions that I don't think I was too keen on. I don't think that they would be beneficial.
See, what I'm hearing from this is that you're not interested in UKIP succeeding. You're interested in UKIP being what you want it to be.
That's a funny way of phrasing it, because I think if I wasn't concerned about a level of professionalism within the party members, then I think we would be doomed to fail. But then again, you're more than free to disagree. I'm more than happy for you to disagree with me there.
Yeah, I do totally disagree. I think that what you're speaking to is a paradigm that has been and gone.
I mean, I don't know. Like, you want to be able to play with the media. I mean, let's have a look at the voting blocks, for example. Only about 20 to 25% of the youth actually.
So, once again, I don't get, like, Mauritian's struggle is in no way saying UKIP has to be what he wants it to be. And he's a man of deep convictions, and he has a very definitive view of what he'd want it to be. He's a social conservative. But I don't get it. Like, why is... I don't know. He's just trying to protect his party. That's literally all he's trying to do.
Voted in Brexit, whereas we had about, I think it was 80% of older people. Now, you know for a fact that older people prefer a level of professionalism. I don't think that the Kekistan meme, like, is really going to appeal to, like, people who are collecting their pensions, frankly.
Yeah, but we've already got their vote.
I don't think we... I mean, yes. On the actual Brexit thing, yes. But the thing is we are talking about a political party here, and we have to evolve beyond purely Brexit, because that's going to be solved in 5 years.
And that's a very true issue, and that's a problem I think UKIP really has going forward, is once Brexit's finished, what's their reason to exist? I mean, obviously they're going to be a British nationalist party to the right of the Conservative Party, and that's the reason for existing. But their whole identity was kind of tied up in Brexit, so it's kind of like, is it just mission accomplished now that the thing has been finished? I think it's an issue going forward.
And that's exactly why we need more professionalism within the members that we're getting.
I don't necessarily agree that what you call professionalism is beneficial to your party. There are lots of people who are very politically engaged, but not with you.
Yeah, I don't doubt that, but the thing is that I still think...
I disagree with you.
I don't doubt that. But what I'm saying is that specifically within our party, if we want to be presenting messages to people on doorsteps, and if we're presenting messages that are frankly unprofessional, then why would they vote for us? They'll think we're amateurs. No one wants an amateur running their country.
Paradigm politics to me. I mean, do you not think that I reach more people than you will on a doorstep?
Well, the thing is that your audience is mostly worldwide. I think only like 20% of your audience is in this country, and most of them are young people who are proven to have a lower voting, like they vote less than older people.
My young people don't vote less.
You know what's
Do you have any sort of proof for that?
Young people are like...
I mean, there's no way to prove that. I don't get what the idea of having, like, professionalism in the actual political party is such a weird thing. Because, I mean, you have people who are actual members, etc., and they have to hold themselves to a certain level of decorum. They have to hold themselves to a certain level of professionalism. But if you're kind of like a pundit or something, basically hawking up ideological position, which is what Sargon kind of traditionally was, there's not really that same level of expectation.
Old people, they have a lot more time, and they will post on social media, they will share memes, they will have a bigger outreach and more involvement than an old lady with a pension who still has a vote, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, but who are they sharing them with? They're not sharing them with old people, they're sharing them
with other young people. Yeah, you're right.
Exactly.
Young people and their family members.
Exactly, and but the thing is we want to win elections, and we're not going to win elections on a group of people who aren't going to vote that much.
Well, they are going to vote. They absolutely. The idea that you think that my politically engaged audience don't vote is hilarious.
I'm not saying that at all, actually. I'm saying...
What you're doing is extrapolating overall numbers from young people and then suggesting that directly applies.
Okay, but why? Like, this is an issue Sargon always has, is, and just a lot of people do. Well, what you're doing is you're just thinking in the big picture. You're just saying, well, generally speaking, younger people vote less, and you're extrapolating that to my audience. So, but that's a perfectly fair thing to say. That's how you run public policy. I mean, we don't know what percentage of Sargon's audience votes. We have no way to know that. And once again, like, if Sargon just wants to be like an advocate for UK independence, for economic liberalism, British civic nationalism, etc., that's fine. But once you join a political, it's like the difference between Mark Stein and Ann Coulter and all kinds of stuff like that. But they don't have the same expectations, like I said.
I'm not saying you're Sargon. You know for a fact that your audience doesn't encompass all UK youth, and in fact, I can say for certain that it's more than it's like what, maybe 3% at most. Now that's off the top of my head. Don't quote me on that. Now, I don't doubt that like 3% of your audience does vote. I don't doubt that. However, we want to expand to more than that. We need a much higher rate, and we need it equally spread across, of course, constituencies. And a lot of these constituencies have variance in the youth populations. A lot of them, obviously, change in age. So, I mean,
to take Mari's side on this, I kind of understand what he means. I remember when the Uzulu meetup, we were going to a bar. And there were people yelling like "Free Kyrgyzstan" at cars. Which
when you showed up,
drunk and going to a bar.
Dude, when you got
the thing is, right. The thing that I find really funny about this is that.
By the way, guys, while we're on the topic of audiences, here I'll show you the demographics of my audience, just out of curiosity, if anybody's interested. So, my audience is predominantly 25 to 34 years old. That's by far the largest group. The rest is 18 to 24 years old. I have almost no kids who watch my videos. Like 2% or less is that. The vast majority of people who watch my content are millennials or Gen Z. I have about 20% who are older than that, but pretty much the people who watch me are people in my age group. Almost exactly the same age as me. I just thought that was kind of interesting. And gender-wise, that's Evie there, and I think Emerald Blonde, and that's them. So it's only that. And then geography's kind of funny because a prophet is never loved in his own country, and it's only about 7% Canadian, with the majority coming from the United States. Shout out to my American brothers. I love you guys. God bless the USA.
I don't think you're going to find much support for not accepting support. I don't think you're going to find that. I think that this is.
But that's the thing. I don't think you're understanding my perspective. What I'm saying is that yeah, fine, do it by the sidelines. Of course, like we want people to promote us in the media. However, if we're going to have actual front and centre members, we're going to expect a level of decorum from them. And I think you're kind of crazy if you think that's an unreasonable proposition. All I'm asking is that we consider that there are more people in this country than people between the ages of 15 and 30.
Okay, but I mean, what's the age demographic of my audience?
Well, yours, from the most part, seems to be late teens, early to mid 20s. I mean, that's
wrong.
Just
completely wrong.
Well, the thing is,
I've got the demographics of my audience. I know what they are.
But then what are they?
The average age is 30.
Okay. But the thing is that's still rather young, because...
Well, Morris, let's look at the numbers. You got an influx of over 10,000 members in the first 12 hours since Sargon and Count Dankula announced their membership.
Yes, but numbers don't, like... You should know this from history. Like, pure and raw numbers don't really necessarily mean anything unless they have a quality of their own, you know?
Yeah, but the thing is, like, these people not only vouch their support, but also pay £30, 30 quid to get it. So
20 quid for under 22.
£30 actually.
It's 20 for under 22s and for veterans.
Okay, but for my audience, it's £30.
Yeah, but the thing is average. You should know this, Sargon. Like, averages aren't the entire lot, so a lot of them will be paying 20 quid. And I'm sure that a lot of them...
Are you arguing over 20 quid now? Like, are you guys so...
Envy, right? The overwhelming bulk of my audience is between 24 and 44, the average being around 30, right?
Yes.
That's the vast majority of my subscribers.
Yes, and there are ones that are under that as well, aren't there? That's my point. Some of them are paying...
Sargon. Is how my audience looks by speaking in generalities. They don't look like what you think they look like.
Well, I know who showed up to the meetup, and I can tell most of them are in their early to mid-20s.
Have you been to the Liberalist meetup?
I haven't, but I've had people who have gone there, and they've told me similar things.
Well, what about...
Okay, well, I'll tell you what then. I think we're pretty much done on this conversation. I'm not really interested in talking to somebody who doesn't really know what they're talking about regarding my position and my audience, and is interested in gatekeeping.
All right, we're gonna pause it.
Well, I mean, do we know what his audience is? I mean, the issue is, like, there's nothing wrong, once again, with getting young people involved in politics. There's nothing wrong with trying to bring young people to UKIP. God knows politicians have been trying to figure out how to get young people to vote for generations. But, like, the complaint here is that it's going to be a distraction. It's not going to wind up helping the party at all. That kind of thing.
At 11:15, there is much more. But you see, Sargon is really offended.
Once again, I'm perfectly willing to reveal my analytics. Not that it really matters. I don't think anyone really cares that much. It's kind of a bit interesting. So yeah, my audience is almost entirely 18 to 34. So
Someone dare question him there. So offended. He's done with the call. What the heck? This guy dare question the great Carl Swindon? How dare you, young rapscallion? Wet behind the ears, fucker. How dare you question me, sir?
I think it's funny that Sargon doesn't understand how averages work.
He's an idiot.
Yes, he's very stupid. Now,
Oh.
there's still... Wait, I'm going to let you weigh in. There's still 16 minutes left. I'm going to let Zidane weigh in, Zidane and Gator give their thoughts really quickly, and then we'll read some super chats, and we'll go back, and we'll...
This guy call out Sargon for all...
Right now.
I'm not really interested in dealing with gatekeepers, so...
Well, I mean...
One question. One last question. Are you upset about classical liberalist position that Sargon has? Like,
No, I have no problem with the actual ideas. What I have a problem with, I mean, I disagree with them. Yeah, I mean, of course I do. I disagree with a lot of people in my party, but I support them nonetheless. Yes, I do, obviously do. I mean, you've gone and looked at my content, I'm sure. So, you know that I disagree with a lot of that stuff. However, we are uniting behind certain things, and I know that Sargon can do that. I mean, he's done that for 4 years. I mean, I wouldn't take that away from you. I know that you have done a lot for our cause, but, and this is my concern, and this is the concern I made clear on Twitter, and this is the concern I made clear on V's stream, that I don't think that the members we will be receiving will necessarily have the same decorum of other groups. For instance, I think Tommy Robinson's groups would do a really good job. They strike me as very serious, they strike me as mature, and that is exactly what a lot of the people we want. Obviously not the firm types, but the actual serious people who will show up to say the speaker's corner thing that he did the first time. Those people struck me as very serious and the sorts of people we'd want presenting our ideas, with the exception, of course, of the firm types. Now, like I say, the impression I've got from experience is that, like, I'm not getting the same vibe off of your audience.
Mauritian kind of has, I assume it's kind of an upper class or a middle class British accent, but his sounds like legitimate, whereas Sargon sounds really fake and affected. So I got to give him credit for that.
And I do believe that they can change. I'm not saying that you can't. What I am saying, however, is that needs to be taken into consideration. I'm not saying anything of that sort.
like, what exactly would you want Sargon to do so you would be happy? I'm just curious, hypothetically.
Well, I'd need things to be more. I'd need to see more seriousness, because I don't see that much seriousness. Like I say, I think that to a lot of people this is a game. A lot of the people, I think this is just a fucking game for a lot of people, and this really isn't.
One
like
example, like what exactly? You know, other than the Kyrgyzstani thing, like what do you think Sargon did that makes you think he's joking around and he's?
Well,
not serious?
I mean, I'm not seeing. I mean, I suppose I could say. I mean, I used to watch Sargon quite a lot, and while some of the stuff is in depth, I don't think it really is like so in depth. I think it'd be nice to see a bit more in depth, like discussion.
Who's doing more in-depth stuff than me?
What?
Who's doing more in-depth stuff than me?
I am.
Okay, but
Me?
give an example of something Sargon did.
Okay. For example, like you mentioned a lot about John Locke, for example. Now,
Really?
well, I mean, you've talked a lot about that being the underlying principle behind liberalism, right? Because it is.
Sure, yeah. But I mean, that's
But the thing is you haven't really done much of an investigation of the book itself, and I think if your audience understood
Because
that,
he never read it.
I also think another thing that would be good is if you directed your people towards people who would improve those optics. So, for instance, people who would help these people become more presentable at doorstops. You know, public speaking types. You know, that would be a nice thing to see.
Who would be an example of great speaker?
I mean, there's Thomas Frank. There's all sorts of people like that. There's all sorts of like personal improvement people. Like there's How to Win Friends and Influence.
Yeah, Mauritian he just has a very pleasant voice, very calming voice, very reasonable sounding, even if you disagree with him. I think he is. Sargon just doesn't sound that way. It's funny though, because he says, "Sargon, have you even read Locke?" Which is hilarious. That someone called him on that. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't think Sargon's as smart as he thinks he is. I don't think he's dumb. I just think he's very arrogant. And I think he could be a lot better if he put more effort in. And I always feel a little defensive about this because obviously my content is not particularly polished or professional. At the same time, though, I work above full-time. I work like 50, 60 hours a week at a full-time job. And I do this as kind of a hobby. So if my content is similar in quality to his, that's not a good sign.
So if I'm
like, does he even do any video editing? No, he doesn't. He does like none. He does the same amount that I do. Like, let's look at a random video. I know this is kind of getting off topic, but yeah, look at this is like the kind of video editing he does. It's once again, there's nothing wrong with any of this, but it's just not. It isn't very in depth. Is there anything like actually philosophical here? Is there anything actually in depth? Like, okay, Article 13. Okay, that's good. Never bet on wokeness. Okay, I don't know. Just a lot of it is just kind of clickbaity. Well, not clickbaity, just like kind of boring stuff. Isn't most of his content literally just him reading an article and making fun of it? Yeah, that's literally it. And I mean, I do that too, but once again.
People, that's a really good book that everyone should read. That's one book that I think you should direct your audience towards because it's fantastic and it really helps for campaigning, having canvassed myself. Because I've noticed the difference between like using the principles and not using them when I was canvassing for the Conservative Party.
I think I kind of understand your point. You're worried that Sargon's audience, the one that you perceive, and honestly, if you perceive the people at the usual meetup, I have to say I disagree with you, but okay.
Can I pause? I'm going to pause at 1507. Can we just appreciate that he just had you haven't even read Locke to Sargon? He just pulled that on Sargon?
Yeah. That's absolutely amazing because I've been saying that forever. It's like, it doesn't really seem like Sargon's ever actually read it. It just seems like he just fucking said it to make himself sound smarter than he really is.
That is just...
He read the front cover and the back.
That's beautiful.
That's all he did.
He's reading upside down. Yes,
he listened to 25% of the audiobook while he was taking care of his wife's dinosaur. I think that's more accurate. All right, 1507. Let's continue.
You're worried that they would scare your core audience away.
Yeah, but also in addition to that, and this is something I haven't mentioned yet, I think you guys may not be aware of it, but I certainly saw this in V's comment section. I see a level of ideological conformity. Now, that isn't necessarily a bad thing in itself. The problem is when you have a flow of people coming in, like you say, 10,000 new members in 12 hours, you can knock the party off balance and turn it into something that it once wasn't. And that's the last thing we want. We want an actual controlled ideological shift. If we shift ideologies at all, we want it to be controlled, and we don't want it to be done through what basically seems to be brigading from our end.
I don't know about ideological conformity. I mean, I got on-caps, I mean, look in the group you've been invited, right? You got Academic Agent, which is borderline ANCAP. You got yourself, which is a Christ fag. Then you got Sarah, which is a
Yeah, but
professor.
I'm not talking about higher echelons. The higher echelons always deviate. But the thing is that on the ground it seems to be very different. Like the unanimous opposition to my criticism of porn I found rather interesting. I mean, like...
You're a part.
I gotta give a lot of credit to Mauritian Struggle for being anti-pornography. I have to give him all the credit in the world. That's an unpopular position to take, but it's extremely extremely important. I think it's one of the single most destructive things in society. It's really bad.
Party that wants to lead over Britain. Like you want to govern. And if you want to govern over Britain, you're going to have to govern over every single
Be
Britain.
even white knights for this guy in private conversations.
Different ideologies. You're going to have to somehow please the old people and the young people. You can't just, okay, we're going to, these are our core members, and we're not going to branch
But
out.
but V, you do need like a level of unity within the party to begin with in order to actually achieve that.
Surely you would have the unity along of the party.
Why is V even involved with British party politics? Like why is he even here? Like none of this really relates to him at all. I mean, shouldn't V be doing something in Romania? Why is he even here? Is he just here to basically shill for Sargon and to try to protect him from Mauritian Struggle just completely and totally destroying him? I don't know what to say.
See,
Well, the thing is that, I mean, I suppose to an extent, but the problem is that there are already there are going to be disagreements, and if we don't have a level of understanding, and I think this may interrupt that, I think that can cause serious problems. I mean, especially considering in future we're necessarily going to have to move more towards a ideologically, relatively stable position because we don't have the issue of Brexit uniting us anymore. We're going to have to become a civic nationalist party, and we're going to need to decide on economic models and stuff like that, and we can't have that if the balance of the part. We're going to need this sooner rather than later, and we can't have that if there's constantly the balance being.
The way I understand politics, from my nation at least, you usually have a vote, and members of that party support a person with a program, and that's going to be the program that the rest of the party falls in line with.
Yes, but the problem is that this is the problem because you guys.
I mean that's how it works in Canada. Every district elects a delegate who's bound to vote on certain positions, and the delegate goes to the party convention and votes on policy issues, and that kind of determines on how the party's going to go about it. So that's true, but I mean, even let's say you agree with Sargon, let's say you want the UKIP to be a liberalist party. I can see his point here. He doesn't want everything to just change overnight.
Weren't in the party to see when Bolton left because we did a similar thing and we lost a lot of people because of ideological differences, and that obviously weakens the party. Like, for instance, one of my good friends who actually worked for the executive committee with me, he was secretary, he left over the Bolton thing, and we've lost a lot of different city councils. I think we lost Ashford and Maidstone. No, it's just Ashford actually, and we lost Dover, I think, as well. Now, if we have ideological stupid fucking little games over ideology, or
oh, by the way, shout out to Romania. Last week they did a constitutional amendment to define marriage between a man and a woman. Romania is also going to have a referendum to confirm that, which is probably going to pass. So, good job, Romania. Keep it going. I love you guys. Interestingly, Romania is, like many Eastern European countries, is a Nazbol country. So the Social Democratic Party of Romania is actually a socially conservative party, whereas the Liberal Party is socially liberal. It's fairly common, unlike in Western Europe where the free market and theoretically socially conservative values go together. In Eastern Europe it tends to be social conservatism goes along with state control of the economy. But God bless you, Romania. You guys rock the world. V's probably like literally the only atheist in Romania. Romania is like the most religious country in Europe.
A very, very strong shift in the ideology of the party very quickly. We risk more people like splintering off, and that isn't a good thing.
But honestly, I don't see Sargon being that different from what UKIP wanted. Like, he always supported UKIP on his channel.
Yeah, but the thing is that there's a lot of social conservatism in there, and I think there's not really a consideration of first principles going on there, whereas people within the higher echelons do consider those.
I think Sargon is a conservative at this point. Like, he did the political compass. He is a writer.
Yeah,
well, that's it. He did the political compass. That means that's exactly. Sorry, I'm just gonna go look at this for a minute. Just looking at these. Yeah, free marketing, social conservatism are cognitive dissidents. Yes. V is from almost Moldova. He doesn't count. Yeah, because in Romania, there's either like, I guess kind of there's like some liberals, although they're more kind of like national liberals. But the vast majority of Romania is extremely religious. Let me just look at this because I found it fascinating. Okay. Yeah, so V is probably literally the only like atheist in Romania. If we look at this. Okay, so Romania is 81% Orthodox, 4% Catholic, 3% Reformed. Okay, non-religious is 0.2% of the population. So that's literally just him. It's literally just him. I'm sorry. This is irrelevant. I apologize, but it just always amused me about him.
I'm still centre left, but either way, it doesn't really matter. What matters are the
center left.
Wow.
But the thing is that they're not common. That's my problem.
Shit.
We have. Well, I mean,
a lot more common than you think.
I don't know. I mean,
give a principle that you think you and Sargon disagree with.
Well, I think Sargon has gone out of his way to attack the idea of identity, and I think being a nationalist part.
Well, that's not true at all. I've never attacked the idea of
yes,
identity.
He has.
Well, I think you have, because you constantly talk about identity politics and stuff, and what is UKIP beyond a party for the British identity? We're a civic nationalist party. Now, we aren't obviously ethno-nationalists.
Let's stop you here, because you're wrong. You're just wrong. I'm against... What UKIP is a political party, and the identity of Britishness isn't like... I mean, that's not a racial identity.
I'm not saying it is.
No, okay, I know you're not, right? But I'm not against the idea of identity.
Yeah, in Canada, we had a whole bunch of, after the Hungarian Revolution, we had a whole bunch of Hungarians move in to the GTA in southern Ontario. I always liked them. I find Hungarians are good people in general. We have, though, a lot of Ukrainians, Poles. I like Eastern Europeans in general, especially when they're outside of Eastern Europe.
Identity is obviously very interesting. I'm against the idea of politicizing those identities where it's just not appropriate, which is almost everywhere.
Well, I mean, what is a nationalist party if not like for British people? I mean,
I think you're not going to start penalising people for not being British enough, are you?
No, but we're not talking from an actual perspective of ethnicity.
Politics. It's okay to promote an identity.
But that's the problem, Sargon. Like, we disagree on what the identity is.
If you look at several of his live streams, yeah.
Why is V here? Like, why is he even on this stream? We're talking about gatekeepers.
Actually talks about the culture of imperialism, where you promote British identity.
Cultural imperialism.
No, like, I don't think, just responding to something, I don't think V's stupid, I just think he's really obnoxious. He's probably not as dumb as, I don't know.
Chiril imperialism, and you promote British identity over everything else. What he is against is identity politics, which means that if you're born black, you have this identity you need to follow. You're not allowed to step out of line.
Well, look, fair enough. I've been watching Sargon since Gamergate, so I think I have a pretty decent idea, although I have dropped off recently.
Yeah, I mean, it seems that you're missing the important stuff, because I'm not against the
You
idea
suck
of
now,
identity.
Sargon.
But the thing is that you're arguing for an identity which isn't really set in stone. I mean, we necessarily have to have like some ideology which is set in stone. I don't believe that the principles that you're upholding.
Romanians have the most interesting accent because it sounds like a cross between like a Slavic accent and like a Latin accent. Like I always think of like an Italian or a Spanish accent that got hit by like a Slavic bus. It's a very interesting accent. I like it, but it's funny whenever I hear Romanian, I immediately am like, are you Spanish? What are you?
Aren't necessarily set in stone.
I don't think you know anything about my political positions, then.
Well, I mean, what is actually rooting your ideology to the ground? Because as far as I've seen, at least from the way you've been talking to, say, Michelle Catlin, I don't...
And just Urbe, yes, I know Romanian is a Latin language. It's in the Romance language family, which is very interesting.
don't see much of a derivation point for any of this sort of stuff.
I mean, I don't really... I'm surprised that you need to ask. I mean...
Well, we need a commonality.
I'm just arguing for English classical liberalism.
Yeah, but the thing is that, like, where are you getting the classical liberalism from? Because...
Okay, guys, I want you all to just brace yourself. We're about to see the biggest ownage in the history of YouTube. Well, not the biggest, but Sargon is about to get forced into a corner and get absolutely obliterated.
Because that's ultimately what matters when it comes to interacting with people.
It's amazing. Like, okay, well, I guess I would begin with Hobbes, with the conception of the state. You'd go through Locke, a tad of Rousseau, although I find Rousseau a bit continental for my liking.
Yeah, but that's not relevant. That's not what I'm saying. Like, I understand the writers, but where are they getting their ideas from?
Just the axioms I'm basing it on. What?
Yeah, like, what axioms are you basing it on? Because I know...
Okay, yeah, I think that the
Next we'll start talking about the allegory of the cave.
Society.
Why? That's my question. That's what I'm talking about.
Basic bitch.
Well, you need a reason for having
poli-sci.
axioms.
No, I have a reason, but like... Okay, because that prevents civil rights violations. That's
Yeah,
what...
but that's circular because you're presupposing civil rights.
Hold on. You want him to say because God.
No, I don't. I'm not saying that at all. I'm asking for an alternative derivation point.
Okay, yeah, the rights are are natural rights that are inherent within each person.
But why are they inherent? That's what I'm asking you. Why?
If you put the man alone on
All
an
of them.
island.
What?
If you put the man
They're given
alone
to us
on
by
an island.
nature, by our creator.
Whoa.
So you're theistic. That's interesting.
No, I don't know who creates us.
What?
Well,
Did
you just
We are
said.
born with them. We can agree that we are.
I agree, but I
Wow. We just saw him get backed into a quarter there. Create us. That was something. So I guess Sargon's a deist now?
it's obviously I believe that rights are innate to human beings, but
Then what's the problem?
because
Wow.
there's a difference in where we're getting it from, and that's what can cause problems. If you don't have a commonality in that, then you're going to come out with all
You
sorts of
agree
weird
with his
conclusions.
assessment, but you disagree with. You're not satisfied with how he reached that conclusion.
Yeah, because that can lead to other problems like
Oops. my
further
bad.
I think of
Let me.
I guess we should call the whole thing out. So if we can't, if you think that we have the same thing for a different reason that I think we have the same thing, then what possible concordance can there be here? Is what you're saying, right?
Well, I'm saying yes, we have agreement on the surface level, but think of ideas like a tree. Now, trees have leaves and
Yeah,
branches,
I
and
know. Just
okay. Now, if you change the root of that, then you're going to get a different tree. You might get similar properties in the wood or similar colour in the leaves, but the thing is that it will still be fundamentally different. And if we don't have a level of commonality there that I think that UKIP is starting to develop, then we're going to cause some
right.
problems.
This is for you and your ideology.
Hold on, I can argue this very well, right? If you have a man and you place him on an island away from society, he's going to have certain benefits.
You know what's interesting about John Locke? If memory serves, John Locke actually was against Catholics serving in any position of power because he felt that the state had to maintain a uniform religious identity. I think he also said, "I never want a single Muslim in the United Kingdom," but Sargon would know better because he's read Locke.
Right? He's going to be.
I just want to pause this for a second. At 24:26, this is like two brainlets dealing with a guy on another level. Much younger. He's much younger than both of these gentlemen, but he's clearly on another intellectual plane, and it's like he's talking to children.
It really is. Sargon and V have no idea what they're doing right now. They sound
It's
like
amazing how a guy that's much younger than them is obviously more well versed and well read, and Sargon's literally going to basic bitch like political science 101 level stuff to try to make these arguments, and I'm like, dude,
It's
I
paper.
learned
He's
about
paper
that shit
thin. Yeah.
freshman year of fucking college, man.
He's not even explaining correctly.
Okay, if people are just wondering about, just a side note. So what I think rights are normative statements on how government should function if it's able to. I guess is a way of putting it. Like I think that, for instance, in 2018, given the amount of okay, so like I think people have a right to food and water in the sense where if it's possible to give everybody food and water, then it's something that would be morally good for them to have. Freedom of speech is a right in that it's a good thing to have, provided it's possible. It's generally speaking a good thing. It's not an unlimitedly good thing, but to me, rights are principles the state should have. Like a right to a fair trial, a right to etc. But they're dependent upon reality and the ability of the state to provide them. So if a state is so powerful, if a state is wealthy enough that it can provide food to everybody, and I think that is just a given in Western countries, people just shouldn't be starving anymore. There's so much excess amount of food. There's so much wealth. There isn't really a need for people to starve anymore, nor is there a need for people to not have water. Things like a right to housing, though, would it be better if everyone had housing? Yes, but that's not within like the government's ability to provide at this amount of time, this given time. Like if we want to talk about a right to clean water, we can talk about that now, but we couldn't talk about that like 200 years ago. Also, rights are not suicide pacts. So, I think that I think like in general free speech is not a bad thing. I don't think that applies to pornography, to pushing just filth on children, to just a lot of things, particularly like I said with regards to kids and stuff that's actively destructive to society. I do think there are limits to these things. It's not a suicide pact. I don't think we can just lay down and say, oh, we're screwed because of more rights. I guess this is how I feel on the issue. I think it's like I said, they're normative statements that are an attempt to bring a moral consistency to governance into the way the state operates, but they aren't absolute, and they're very much like and it's like people criticize Lincoln for suspending habeas corpus during the American Civil War, but you have to survive the short term to be finished off by the long term. I mean, the state has to be around at the end of it to protect your rights. I mean, there's limits. Like, if you go too far, then the country becomes so fundamentally broken that you can't put it back together. But you just can't autistically push them. And that's kind of one of the issues with the liberalists. And I'm just going to repeat my criticism of the liberalists and why their whole idea is intensely stupid. Is a liberalist state would have to be a totalitarian police state. And I've discussed this before, because people don't... Classical liberalism is a philosophy that appeals to upper middle class white males. It doesn't really appeal to anybody else en masse. If you look at libertarians, that's almost entirely everybody. I was losing my train of thought there. Oh, right. Okay. So people like libertarianism, classical liberal, these things don't appeal to women. They don't appeal to working class people by and large. They don't appeal to minorities. None of these like other people give a crap over that. If it was so easy, then we wouldn't be in this mess. We wouldn't have socialist government. We wouldn't have hate speech laws, etc. But people just don't think that way. People like identity groups. They like to feel like they're part of something bigger than themselves, and they don't mind violating other people's rights in pursuit of their goals. So like in Sargon's state, how would he deal with, and if he's answered this question, I'll apologize. How would he deal with a Muslim political party that wants to implement Sharia law? And let's say they won an election, they're in power. How is he going to stop it? How is he going to, what is his solution to this? Let's say I came to power and I wanted to enact pro-life laws because I want to protect the unborn. How is he going to stop that? How is he going to stop people who vote themselves big government? There's no way for him to deal with any of these things in his country unless it's a military dictatorship, which I guess would work. Yeah.
No, he's not. He's just throwing the names out there. Rousseau and Loki. I mean,
What
I'm
about
pretty
the
sure
creator
appeals
comment?
authority.
Well, I don't know who the creator is.
Yeah.
Sargon just appeals authority. That's it. He name drops these, Locke and stuff like that.
Hobbes.
But he has no idea what they actually wrote. He has no understanding of what they did.
Can you explain the Leviathan?
Just about to say Leviathan.
Yeah,
That's
explain
the
the
British
Leviathan
in
as
short.
both
That's-
as an entity and also as the ultimate state that a government eventually becomes.
All right, let's continue. I just had to pause it just to get that out there because it's very clear. All right, 24, 26, 3 more minutes. Let's head for the final turn right now.
Able to express his mind, so he's going to have free speech. He's going to have the right to live. No one is going to harm him there. He's going to have the right of bodily integrity. He's going to have the right of free movement. So we can assume that this is the natural state of man.
The right of bodily integrity, unless he's not born yet, or even if he is born, I guess.
These are the rights that men are born with. And only if you have a society and they form like a tyrannical government can they impose themselves on the rights of the person.
He sounds more learned than Sargon. I'm just going to be flat out honest with you.
Well, I mean, then in that case, if we were to take this example of a man on an island, he would have the right to murder because he can kill himself with no repercussions.
He's alone on
You
the
can
island.
kill yourself with no repercussions.
Well, yeah, he can, because who's going to punish him for it?
You can't punish a dead person.
Well, I think that's where we disagree.
I appreciate the conversation, but this feels like a massive waste of my time. I'm sorry.
Oh,
Okay.
Oh,
I've got things to do. I'm in the middle of recording a video. And
Likewise, I've got a couple of meetings to go to, and I've actually got to meet Gerald on Sunday. So
it's a waste of his
I'm sorry
valuable
I couldn't help
time.
you.
I'm sorry you guys didn't reach an agreement. I have to say it's really interesting listening to both of you speak.
yeah, this just seems like a silly gatekeeping conversation to me.
I think this is someone deliberately missing the point and just putting in a load of polemics to try and prove a point to two other people. So
That's right. Okay. As you wish. But anyway, thank you for the conversation.
oh,
and,
not a problem.
yeah.
Not a problem. You too. Best of luck with your channel.
No!
Did you want to make a live stream?
wow, that was... It was something. But anyways, I think we talked about a lot of interesting stuff here about the problems of transitioning to like formal politics, stuff like that. It's interesting. And like I tried not to just dump on Sargon because I find the topic interesting beyond just the drama. But thank you everybody for watching. I won't take up more of your time. God bless you and have a good evening.